There comes a moment in some women's lives when the room suddenly becomes quiet. Not peaceful quiet. The kind of quiet that happens after doors close, one after another, friends fade, promises expire. People who once filled your days slowly become strangers, and one day you look around and realize the only one still sitting in the room with you is God. At first, it feels like loss, but heaven sees it differently. Because sometimes God empties the room before he reveals the purpose. When a woman reaches the place where God is the only voice left in her life, something unusual begins to happen inside her. She starts becoming someone she has never been before. Not louder, not harder, stronger in a way that doesn't need witnesses. This season feels like abandonment to the world. But in heaven, it's called construction. God often builds his strongest daughters in seasons where nobody is watching. Most people spend their lives surrounded by voices, advice, opinions, expectations, pressure, everyone telling you who you should be. But clarity rarely lives in crowded places. So sometimes God does something uncomfortable. He begins lowering the volume of people in your life. Not because they were evil, but because they were loud. When the distractions fade, something surprising happens. You start hearing thoughts you never noticed before. Convictions you ignored, dreams you buried. Suddenly God's direction becomes clearer than it has ever been. This is what happened to Elijah. After the chaos of battle, after the fire from heaven, after the shouting crowds, God spoke not through the storm, but through stillness, because revelation prefers quiet environments. There is a strength you only discover when there is no one left to lean on. As long as someone is holding you up, you never realize how strong your own legs are. So sometimes God removes the supports. The friend who always fixed everything. The relationship that gave you identity. The approval that made you feel secure. And when those things disappear, it feels like the ground collapsed. But something else is happening. God is teaching you how to stand without applause. This is the kind of strength Paul discovered when he wrote, "Everyone deserted me, but the Lord stood with me." Not everyone is meant to stay in your life forever. Some people are only there until God is ready to grow you. Busy lives hide deep questions, but solitude reveals them. When a woman finds herself alone with God, she begins facing things she once avoided. Old wounds, unspoken fears, hidden insecurities. The silence becomes like a mirror. And at first, that mirror can feel uncomfortable. But healing always begins with honesty. David understood this when he prayed, "Search me, O God, and know my heart." Because transformation doesn't start when life changes. It starts when the heart opens, and solitude has a way of opening doors inside the soul that noise keeps locked. When life is comfortable, it's easy to confuse temporary things with important things. Attention feels like love. Success feels like purpose. Approval feels like identity, but pain rearranges priorities. It removes illusions. Suddenly things that once felt important feel small, and things that once felt small become priceless. Peace, truth, God's presence. This is why some of the most spiritually powerful people in Scripture were also the ones who suffered deeply. Joseph's prison, David's caves, Ruth's loss, Hannah's tears. Pain stripped away everything unnecessary until only faith remained. And faith is stronger when it has nothing else to depend on. Many women unknowingly build their identity on fragile foundations. A relationship, a title, a role, someone else's validation, but when those things collapse, identity collapses with them. That's why God sometimes dismantles the old identity completely, so he can rebuild something stronger. Not who people said you were, not who circumstances forced you to become, but who heaven originally designed. This is what happened to Hagar. She entered the wilderness rejected and invisible, but she left that wilderness with a revelation. The God who sees me. Sometimes God takes you to places where nobody else recognizes you, just so you can discover that he does. There is a kind of faith that only grows when prayers feel unanswered, when hope feels thin, when heaven feels silent. It is not the cheerful faith of easy seasons. It is the stubborn faith that refuses to quit. The kind Habakkuk described when he said, "Even if the fig tree does not blossom, yet I will rejoice in the Lord." That kind of faith cannot be manufactured in comfort. It is forged in waiting, refined in uncertainty, strengthened in quiet endurance. And once a woman develops that kind of faith, very little in this world can shake her again. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. No applause, no spotlight, no recognition, just quiet days and long nights. But heaven often does its most important work underground. A seed buried in the soil looks forgotten, but beneath the surface, life is forming, roots are stretching, strength is developing. And when the time is right, what was hidden will suddenly rise. This is why God sometimes hides the people he plans to use. Because visibility is dangerous before maturity. And preparation requires privacy. So if you are in a season where the circle feels smaller, where the conversations are fewer, where the nights feel longer than usual, don't rush to escape it. You might be standing in the exact place where God does his deepest work. Because when a woman finally discovers that God is enough, everything about her changes. Her confidence no longer depends on people. Her peace no longer depends on circumstances. Her purpose no longer depends on approval. And when she walks out of that hidden season, she doesn't return the same. She returns anchored, awakened, and impossible to break. If this message found you at the right moment, type this in the comments. God is enough for me. And if this word strengthened your spirit, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so more hearts can be reminded of God's faithfulness. God bless you.